So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker today. She is a dear friend, a luminary soul. Every time she opens her mouth, I am just in awe, astounded. I have had the honor of knowing her for several years now. And she lives what she calls a Bruce Wayne and Batman life. That's right. She's a very special creature. In her Bruce Wayne life, she is the global lead for responsible AI for Accenture. In her Batman life, she helps lead Catapult Learning, the education arm of this community-oriented event right here. She will have a workshop later today at 2:45 on these core components. So if you love what she says, please come and check out the workshop. Please warmly welcome Rumman Chowdhury.
Thank you. It is soul-filling to be in this room. For those of us who are here for a second time, some of us had a bit of anticipation, a little bit of fear coming back. Last year was so amazing. It was so amazing. There were so many of us who thought we were the only people doing what we do. We were the only people who thought there was more to technology and there was more to Silicon Valley than some sort of KPIs associated with user retention and dollars. We saw this technology and we saw this opportunity as something more than simply being part of the same old systems we've been part of. And we've come back and we found that everything we saw last year is just as amazing as it was, and if not better. So welcome back for those of you who are coming back, and welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. And I cannot wait for you to experience what those of us who have returned experienced last year. And thank you so much, Crown Princess, for joining us as well. So my talk is entitled, So You Want to Start a Revolution. So when Rachel asked earlier, who are we, had people raise their hands. So many people here in this room are entrepreneurs and investors. And we're all people who think that we can start a revolution. We can change the world. We can do things with this technology that's special and different. We see a problem and we want to solve it. And that's usually how it kind of goes from us. Step 1, solve a problem. Step 2, something, something, something. Step 3, save the world, right? That step 2, by the way, is here. It's Catapult Future Fest. This is your family. In this space, you will never have to apologize for who you are. You will never have to apologize for how you think the world should be. You will never have to apologize for dedicating your life to making the world a place that's worth living in for everybody on the planet. You will not have to start your pitch by saying, let me explain why I do what I do, because everybody in the room will understand you. And this is why we have so much magic in this place. When we all start from a place of common good, we achieve so much more. So, what is the Catapult family? We are a family of amazing thinkers and doers. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and we were saying, what is so magical about this group of people? It's because we are the middle part of that Venn diagram between the thinkers and doers. We are not just people who take action. We are people who take thoughtful and meaningful action. So some of the pictures here are from last year. Anders, Terald in the middle. Thank you, by the way, as the leaders of Nordic Impact, and Ida, thank you so much for being one of the organizers of Catapult Future Fest and the leader of Nordic Impact as well. And yes, as Rachel mentioned, the pants. So if you will find in one of the huts a set of people furiously working at sewing spandex pants. And I think Casey Fenton's Fantasy Project really embodies the spirit of Catapult. It is fun, it is amazing, and it is shared. It is a collective shared experience that just makes life so much more beautiful. So I encourage you to really tap into this feeling this weekend, the hard work, the spirit, and the pants. So last year, my talk here was about how can humanity find purpose in a post-scarcity society. So as Rachel mentioned, what we are trying to achieve is a world in which we have no want. Because we don't have a problem of resource, we actually have a problem of redistribution in this world. There is so much held by so few. How do we create a world in which everybody has what they need to be happy and to flourish? And over the last year, because last year was our first year in Catapult Future Fest, it was also the first year for some of the other things that the people in the space work on as well. In my field of ethics and AI, it was a very nascent, very new space. And last year we've learned something really compelling about ourselves is we have no idea what our purpose is today. So faced with all of this automation, faced with all this amazing technology, what have we chosen to do with it? How have we made our lives better? And how have we found meaning and purpose in what we do today? And what are the questions it raises about humanity? So what we're doing is actually falling into old dichotomies. So some of these articles you'll see here, the AI arms race, China and US compete to dominate big data. 5 ways blockchain can save humanity. And apparently, the Internet of Things will now save the world's water. So problems with all of these headlines. The first is that when we talk about things in terms of a zero-sum game, in terms of an adversarial, war-driven narrative, guess what the world keeps on staying as? An adversarial, war-driven place. And yet we know so much of this technology is about democratization, about humanization, about access. And instead, what are we talking about? An AI arms race? Well, if we live in a world in which we can understand competition better than we can understand collaboration, we have fundamental flaws in how our society is constructed. And in terms of pushing out the problems that we've created onto technology, blockchain is not alive and sentient. The Internet of Things is not able to take action. It is human beings that take action. So blockchain does not save humanity. Human beings save humanity. That's a term that I call moral outsourcing. When we anthropomorphize technology, or we humanize, and we particularly see this in artificial intelligence, we humanize AI, and then we push the responsibility of fixing our messes onto this technology. So now it is artificial intelligence's job to make sure the children of the world are educated, and it's the Internet of Things' job to make sure all of our water is clean and drinkable. But we're the ones that screwed it up, and frankly, we're the ones that have to take action. So we're limiting ourselves. Instead of seeing this technology as expansive, as world expanding, we've now trying to shove this amazing thing and our capabilities that will be augmented by this amazing thing into these boxes, again, these zero-sum games, these dichotomies of war, this world in which, in order to have a have, you have to have a have-not. And I think everybody in this room challenges that notion. Another thing I want to point out, I live in Silicon Valley, and one thing I get asked, actually quite a bit, and I was asked this by the current batch of accelerator students, I get asked this by the media, who is my hero in Silicon Valley? You know, who are the leaders that you think are changing the world? And I struggle. I genuinely struggle. And most people here who know me know that I have very few nice words to say about most Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. But this man is not somebody you will know. He has not shot his car into space. He is not worth $1 billion. He does not create sexy social media platforms. But this man is actually one of the core founders of virtual reality as we know it, and one of the original people who created the culture of Silicon Valley. His name is Jaron Lanier. He's currently at Microsoft Research. He had this amazing interview that I ended up putting on all my social media because it really spoke to my heart. As somebody who works in Silicon Valley, I've only been there for about 5 years. I thought of Silicon Valley as this amazing place that was a nerd playground, that crazy, intelligent people wanted to solve problems in the world, and it was cool that you made money. Great, that's nice, because money can help you travel, it can help you pay for your rent, you don't have to worry. But that wasn't the point. The point was to solve a problem, and instead, I found out it was the opposite. Frankly, most of the people I've met, most of the traditional Silicon Valley culture has lost that purpose. And Jaron puts it perfectly. He said, we used to be rebels, and we were the underdogs and had to struggle, and we have won everything. We're the conduit of everything happening in the world: politics, social media, relationships. How you interact with every single person in your life is somehow mediated by some technology, but we don't act like it. We have no sense of balance, of modesty, and graciousness at having won. And what we produce does not reflect that. And in doing so, we kind of become assholes. And this is why the media is currently having a bit of a field day tearing Silicon Valley apart. And when we see it reflected in the products that we build, again, I work in artificial intelligence and ethics, and it very much bothers me that people in Silicon Valley, these massive companies, are not putting the thoughtfulness into their products. Again, we've shoved this technology into a dichotomy of a zero-sum game. We have to gain ad revenue. We have to keep user engagement. Well, when your key performance indicators are user engagement, you don't care where your humanity goes. And here's just a few examples. Amazon has patented a system to track employees as they work. By the way, Jeff Bezos is worth about $1 billion. So in order to pursue this dream of marginal efficiency, this man who is worth $1 billion, his company, is putting wristbands on employees, mind you, not the vice presidents. These are the rank and file employees, people who stock boxes possibly, people who drive trucks, people who are working the phones, to monitor how they are working. This is what we've chosen to do with artificial intelligence and tracking devices. We all know that China has created a social credit score, and social credit score is an economically driven ecosystem of apps that uses your behavior, your shopping behavior, your movement, how you act on public transit, how you interact with other people, to give you a rating and a score of your value as a human being. So now an economic institution and a government is telling you what you are worth as a person. Palantir has been using predictive policing technologies, and they've done so without even talking to the New Orleans City Council. So these companies are higher and bigger than governments. They hold more power and they hold more revenue. And as Jaron said, they don't act like it. They still act as if they're this small, scrappy startup with no resources and nobody likes them. Instead, they do that while wielding the power of multiple nations. And finally, last week, we all saw Google Duplex, which is able to replicate a human voice. And it floored me, frankly, and it shocked me that nowhere in this design process was this consideration that it should introduce itself as an AI. So all this technology is built on tracking, policing, tricking, and fooling. Why do we want to build that kind of a world with our technology? And ultimately, some people would say the problem is our traditional method of capitalism, because, by the way, this exploitation is a feature, not a bug, right? And this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. is amazing, and this quote is obviously quite old. And it's capitalism has outlived its usefulness. It takes from the masses to give to the classes. This is why you end up in a world in which one man is worth $1 billion and his company tracks employees with wristbands to make sure they're not wasting a few extra minutes in the bathroom. So my challenge to everybody in this room is, how might we? I do a lot of design-led thinking, and it's really amazing at bringing the human perspective into what we build and how we build it. So how might we? First, how might we create a new economic system based on trust, not exploitation, based on vertical collaboration, not centralization, and on ethics as an integral part of what we've built, not a nice add-on to make ourselves feel better after we've polluted an ocean? How might we generate systems of revenue that are not based on exploitation? How can we create and produce such that the people producing, the people purchasing, and the people reaping the benefits of that production are all happy? How might we use technology as a tool to truly advance humanity and not to blame our problems on or to shove the responsibility of fixing our problems? And finally, how might we generate a society based on humility, resource sharing, and empowerment? So, as I've mentioned, step 1, solve a problem. Step 2, find your tribe at Catapult. My second challenge to you is talk to people who are very, very different from you. If you work in blockchain, talk to somebody in AI. In fact, go find a designer who does generative art. Because as I've mentioned, you are with your family now. And you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to explain why you do what you do. Understand that everybody in this room is starting from the same space. So what's really amazing, the beautiful thing about Catapult is all of my friends here are people who don't actually do what I do. They don't work in AI and ethics. They work in blockchain. They're dancers. They create algorithmic art. They educate girls on technology. They run investment funds. And our collaborative ideas together is actually what creates this revolution. So my challenge to you is to create an ecosystem, to create an army of partners, a tribe of people who bring this force of good out and back to where you're from. So as I mentioned, for some of us, coming to Catapult was, not to be hyperbolic, a career-changing or a life-changing experience. There are people here who changed their career paths after being at Catapult. There are those of us, as I mentioned, who thought we were alone, who went back emboldened and felt stronger about our purpose and our mission for what we do because we knew we had an entire family to back us up. So when I go back to Silicon Valley and some AI engineer tells me, what do we really need ethics for anyway? It's really just the nice part that we use to sell our products, and we're really going to build what we build. I can tell them that I know hundreds of people who disagree with them. So our collective step 3 is save the world. Thank you very much.